viewers on AM Live. It is Wednesday, the 29th of August 2018, and I trust, as always, you've slept easy, woken up well, and you're ready to face this good day. As I always say, that the good Lord has afforded us, right? We are focusing on matter security today, on standing on guard, and a lot has been happening. I can see also Dr. Mustafa is just arriving. Good to see you. And we'll be discussing on what is on, of course, on the front of South Sudan right now as far as the peace deal is concerned. That seems to be going down the tubes. Also, looking at the Iran nuclear deal with the imposition of sanctions today, a delegation will be sent to the United States to try and, of course, broker that as well. There also North Korea nuclear deal. That also seems to be going down the tube. So there's a lot that we can discuss today that it seems all the hopes that we had as far as the deals were concerned are not really working out. I don't know what you think, Dr. Khaninte. Good morning.
I think the Sudan mess has been fixed since, because Riek Machar has finally agreed to actually sign the deal.
Oh, really? That's the latest?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So it seems I didn't get this news.
Exactly.
Right. But we'll try and see that what really happened yesterday. Why were they? So is it just Riek Machar alone because it was opposition parties? Yeah,
but he's the main, and he had some reservations with regard to the transition arrangement. And I think that was worked out.
Okay.
Now, the mediators, they are supposed to submit the remaining work to IGAD.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll hear also from Erastus Mwencha. Good morning.
Yeah. Well, the deal had quite a number of sticky issues.
Yes.
Especially on the number of states that are being created and security arrangements and the rest, which we all knew from the beginning that was going to be quite tricky to navigate. But as Hassan has just indicated, there is some glimmer of hope, and let's give them the benefit of doubt for the time being.
All right, benefit of doubt. Thank you very much. And of course, we shall be hearing also from Professor Monwami Dambo, who's just arriving. Good to see you. As you settle in, let's see what also is headlining the front pages of our dailies today. And this is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation. How Mwilu finally fell. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Corruption case has all the ingredients of a best-selling crime thriller. That is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation today. And it says, tough, away from public sight, a fierce battle of wills and wits was fought between the Deputy Chief Justice and her lawyer Okongo Mogini and the resting team. But after 2 days of arguments and drama, the long arm of the law led her away. You have this story tucked away on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Nation today. Graft buster. We can see here, Ms. Mwilu packaged herself as a graft buster during interviews, telling Parliament how she once restituted money from corrupt clerks. Right, and you have this also the career, the appointment of Justice Mwilu in 2016 had the support of a CJ David Baraga, and then the president of the Court of Appeal, Paul Kihara, now the Attorney General. By then, she had practiced law for more than 32 years and served as a company secretary at the Electricity Regulatory Board. If she falls, she will follow in the footsteps of Nancy Baraza, should say, who was dethroned in 2012 for gross misconduct. And that is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation today. Also inside final edition, Waraka Land Senators fight bribery claim, committee given 7 days to clarify if its members offered protection fees to city businessmen. And also MP seeks to delay new tax plan on fuel. Junaid wants rollout of proposals to charge 16% VAT on fuel products pushed to 2020. That story we have it on page or at the back page, on the back page of the Daily Nation today. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Standard. The charges facing Deputy Chief Justice Thunder. Judge Philomena Mwilu was quietly arrested yesterday, questioned by detectives, and later taken to court after 5 p.m. This is what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. And we have also a quote here from DPP Nuruddin Haji saying, quote-unquote, I have concluded that the evidence is sufficient with a reasonable prospect of conviction and it is in the public interest that criminal proceedings should be preferred. These are the charges against Justice Mwilu: abused her office for personal gain and lawful failure to pay taxes, accepted money in circumstances which undermine public confidence in the integrity of her office, conducted herself in disregard of the law. 12 million shillings, the money she received from Imperial Bank between August 15th and October 23rd, 2013. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. We have a star for you as well. Judiciary panic as DCJ Mwilu faces 12 million shillings graft charge. Who's next? Police probing tenders, bribe-taking judges. Haji warns more arrests are on the way, targets fakes. And you have that story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. Also, Quran's fake degree linked to murder attempt. Kamore Minor, they attempted, it says that this is a story, I think, by Kamore Minor. It says they attempted murder of former Garissa The attempted murder of former Garissa Finance Executive Idris Mokhtar was planned by Governor Ali Korane's cousin, police sources told the Star yesterday. You can follow this story on page 2 of the Star, and we have also that bulletin for you. Kano to DP Ruto, we will not give you any breathing space. This is what they're saying, and this story is tucked away on page 8 of the Star. And Suzuri to seek clearance from NLC boss to access office is another story that you want to follow. And you can see here a related picture on that particular headline that is on the front page of the Star this morning. In the dock, Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu denies 13 corruption charges released on the 5 million shillings personal bond yesterday. And you can see her wearing that chapel that particular long face on the front page of the Star. Let's see what we have on the front page of the People Daily. Who is next after DCJ Mwilu arrest? That is the probing question. Haji's strategic but shocking move to charge judiciary's second-in-command of a graft sends chilling message to public officials, especially top civil servants who are under the microscope for abuse of office. And with DPP's vow for more to come, no one is safe. This story continues on page 6 and 7. You can see a related picture there as well. This is the Deputy Chief Justice. Let's move on and see what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. And let me just grab it quickly for you so that you can see what also it holds for us this morning. And this is what it is on the front page of Taifa Leo today. And it's still the same story. Jaji Mwilu Kikangoni, that is what it says. You can follow this story on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Business Daily is up next, and this is your splash today. Treasury to take 57.57 shillings for every litre of petrol sold. New VAT on petroleum product to hit consumers hard beginning this Saturday. Treasury will take 57.57 out of every 1 litre of super petrol sold in Nairobi beginning this Saturday, marking the coming into effect of the new value-added tax that raises the cost per litre to 131.93 shillings. The new tax, a condition imposed by the International Monetary Fund, increases to 44% the proportion that the government takes in the cost. You have the story continuing on page 4 of the Business Daily today. Also still on the front page of the Business Daily, Garissa governor arrested over officials shooting is another side of the story. It continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Also, Imperial Bank takes Mwilu down. The collapsed Imperial Bank saga yesterday sacked in Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu in a dramatic case that left her long legal career hanging on a thread. Director of Public Prosecutions Nuruddin Haji said that Justice Mwilu accepted cash gifts, obtained execution of a security belonging to Imperial Bank by impersonation, and failed to pay taxes. This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, Kirubi raises his stake in Centum. Billionaire Chris Kirubi has raised his stake by 2 million shares in listed investment firm Centum, in which he is the single biggest shareholder. We have this story also tucked away on page 19 of the Business Daily. We cross over now the region and we go to Tanzania and we look at the Citizen. Prime Minister reassures private sector on reform drive. Premier Majaliwa tells TPSF's annual general meeting that the government is committed to improving the business environment in the country. This story is tucked away on page 2 of The Citizen. Also, Budget Committee leaders step down. Parliamentary Budget Committee Chairperson Hawa Garcia and Vice Chairman Jituson Patels resigned yesterday. You can find the reasons for their resignation inside The Citizen on page 2. Also, women police officers get a fresh look with new uniform, and you can see this. This is happening in Tanzania. Women traffic police officers on duty in Dar es Salaam. Yesterday, the police force has changed their attire for female officers from shirts and skirts to shirts and trousers. You can follow this story. This is how it was before with the skirts, but now this is a new look that they have in Tanzania. Also, government restricts access to social media in public office. The government has issued a circular restricting access to social media platforms using internet-linked facilities provided by the state. You can follow the story on page 2 of The Citizen. If you're waking up in Tanzania, Mwananchi also is up next, still in Tanzania. Lugola akemea ma-DC kusweka watu sa. That is the hour that is given there. You can follow that story inside the Mwananchi. Also, msimamo wa DK mpango dhidi ya Makonda mjadala. That is what we have also on the front page of the Mwananchi. Let's see what we do have in Uganda, and this is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. It says, woman who saw Bobby driver killed speaks out. She was in backseat of Bobby's car. Bullet grazed her forehead. Beaten by security, left for dead. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Monitor. You can follow that story on page 5, an exclusive there. Also, NSSF declares 15% interest. About 2 million Ugandans will receive 1.1 trillion shillings on savings for the financial year 2017-2018, according to the National Social Security Fund. This story continues on page 42 of the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. And also, we do have the Wall Street for you. But before we go to the Wall Street or even the East African, we can take a look at what is on the front page of the New Times in Rwanda. And it says that BRD explains a new housing project. This is Rwanda Development Bank this week unveiled a housing project which promises to partly address the shortage of affordable housing in the country. You can follow this story on page 5 of the New Times if you're waking up in Rwanda. Also, City Mayor upbeat about Busanza housing project. This is a related picture there, and you can see the city of Kigali Mayor Marie Chantal Wakanzina, flanked by city businessman Dennis Carrera, on a guided tour of a site in Busanza, Kisukiro district, where over 1,000 housing units are being developed. You can follow this story inside the New Times in Rwanda. The East African this week is holding this particular splash for you. Bobby Wine's spectre is haunting Museveni. Protest rock Kampala as well condemns rapper politicians' brutalization. This, you have the full report on page 4 of the East African. Also, trade tops agenda of Uhuru visit. Poster Goa, US plans bilateral trade deals with a few African countries. A story by Alan Olingo there. You can follow it on page 5 of the East African this week. Why Fly 40 stopped flying to South Sudan. South Sudan has stopped operations of Kenyan airline Fly 540 at Juba Airport over protracted landing fees round, leaving travelers with only 2 direct flights between Nairobi and Juba. This story continues on page 6 of the East African this week. Editorial cartoons. This is what we have today inside the Daily Nation. Right, according to, I think I gave you this yesterday. Let me try and see if I have the current one. Yes, this is the one. Didn't actually. This is what we have in the Daily Nation today. According to Munene, right, all the huge donations we get is graft proceeds. This is what the archbishops are saying. All the money is cast. Give us a break. And then we have down there, what color is corruption money, when they hold a press conference. But behind them you can see also bags of cash. Right, this is all about the harambes the clergy or the church has been receiving without questioning the proceeds or the source of the monies. That is what Munene has done for us. Let's see what is also inside the People Daily. According to Stano, right, everyone is quoting the African lady, right, or the Kenyan girl. That is, you can see the China with the yen as well, the US dollar, Uncle Sam there. And you can see UK with the sterling pound as well, everyone. Of course, we know President Uhuru Kenyatta is in the United States. They held a meeting with President Trump. We shall be discussing that also, the ramifications of that with a new deal that we do have. And also, we know that Theresa May will be jetting into the country tomorrow. She is in South Africa. We'll give you the details of what really transpired there. And also China, right? Everyone is heading to China right now for that particular forum that they do have. We'll give you the details as well. And all this is all about bilateral relations. This is what has been captured by Steno. I want to show you also what we have inside the Standard, the editorial page. All right, this is a blankety blank witch hunt. This is a blankety blank witch hunt, part of the 2022 succession battle. Right, and you can see there, this is the Director of Public Prosecution dragging the Deputy CJ on the ground there. And of course, the little rat is saying, you have to tell that to the presiding judge, ma'am. That is what we have on the front page, on the editorial page of the Standard today, according to Gado. Lastly, let's see what we have in the Star. And this is what Victor has drawn for us. Right, and of course, it's all about Uhuru and the world leaders. We can see President Trump there, President of China, Xi Jinping, and Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the UK. See, Kenya is a prime cut. And of course, there is your meat. Which slice should you take? That is what has been drawn there by Victor inside the Star. Let's swing for the fences by looking at the highlights. The intrigues around Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu's arrest and arraignment. IBC intrigues have left the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee divided. South Sudan peace deal update. Opposition parties refuses to sign final peace deal, but we have the latest. Now, Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu was last evening, I should say, released on a 5 million shillings personal bond by the Anti-Corruption Court and directed to appear in court today morning at 9. Alongside her co-accused Stanley Muluvi, Judge Lawrence Mugambi said the order was temporary and was only meant to secure her court attendance today. Mwilu faces a raft of allegations, including abuse of office and tax evasion charges. She was represented by Senior Counsel James Orengo and John Kaminwa, among others. DCJ Mwilu is also accused of obtaining execution of a security belonging to Imperial Bank Limited by false pretense, abusing her office for personal gain, and accepting a gift in the form of money in circumstances which undermined public confidence in the integrity of her office.
Shall be released on executing a personal bond of Kenya shillings 5 million. They are further ordered to appear before this court tomorrow without fail at 9 a.m. These terms are temporary to secure their appearance tomorrow, and after tomorrow's proceedings, the court shall, if necessary, impose such further conditions as it shall deem necessary.
Now, Philomena Mwilu is the third Deputy Chief Justice to face legal action while serving in office. The DPP says he has sufficient evidence to charge the DCJ in court with abuse of office, among other charges. There are only two possible outcomes, either a conviction or an acquittal. It will only get more complex if there is a petition to remove the judge from office. Now, Article 168 of the Constitution outlines the process of a judge's removal from office. Now, let's start with the grounds. There can only be 5 grounds on which a judge can be removed. One is the inability to perform the functions of office arising from mental or physical incapacity. The second, a breach of code of conduct, prescribed for judges of the superior courts. Bankruptcy is another reason, incompetence or gross misconduct or misbehavior. Even then, there is a whole process that goes with it, and it starts with the Judicial Service Commission, where allegations are made in writing, or sometimes JSC can also act on its own motion. The petition sets out the grounds for removal of a judge. Then JSC considers the petition, and if it is satisfied that the petition raises a ground for removal of a judge, then it will be sent to the President. The President shall then suspend the judge within 14 days after receiving the petition and form a tribunal consisting of a chairman and 3 other members from among persons who hold or have held office as judges at a superior court. The tribunal will inquire into the matter and report on facts and make binding recommendations to the President. A judge aggrieved by the tribunal's decision may appeal to the Supreme Court within 10 days. The President will act on tribunal recommendations. Whichever way, what the DCJ faces are criminal charges. According to precedents, it is highly likely the existence of the court or the court case could trigger the process envisioned for the removal of a judge. Of course, you can grab a copy of the dailies, which is comprehensive with this particular story this morning. Director of Public Prosecutions Nuruddin Haji says his office will wage an unrelenting and ruthless war on corruption. In announcing his decision to charge the Deputy Chief Justice, he emphasized the need for those in public service to submit themselves to the constitutional precepts of integrity, demonstrate good judgment, and lead by example. The DPP says the country was being torn apart by people who abused the trust bestowed upon them by the public. Take a listen.
The message that the President, the Chief Justice and other leaders have been sending is that this chaotic system needs to come to an end for the sake of our people. In Nairobi, the NYS cases will come up for hearing between October and January next year. 2 of the Kenya Power cases will be heard in October. The KEBS and soon the National Cereals and Produce Board and the National Land Commission cases are in the pre-trial stage. In keeping with our constitution mandate, the ODPP must and will wage an aggressive effort against all forms of corruption.
Let's see you for more panelists. Of course, we take a security angle on this as well, and looking at the Constitution. And of course, we had also the first Deputy CJ shown the door because of pinching the nose of a security guard. That what we read today and allegations that actually the accusatory fingers that are raised against Deputy CJ currently, they're gross. And we want to hear from our panelists to tell us this morning what is the way forward. Of course, this is under investigation, but allow me to introduce our panelists again to you. If you're joining us this morning, we have with us Dr. Hassan Kanenje, who is the director at the Horn Institute. Also, we do have with us Ambassador Erastus Mwencha, who is the former deputy chair of the African Union. Professor Naomi Damba is a vice chancellor of KCA University and also an expert on foreign policy and defense. We do have with us as well Irungi Houghton, who is the Executive Director of Amnesty International Kenya, and Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, who is a conflict and resolution expert and also a national security analyst as well. We continue this morning with the discussion, but looking at the fight on corruption so far, for the longest time we've been complaining as a country that we're not netting the big fish. But right now we can see that net is cast wide and is dropping in big names in the country, going with the previous precedents that were set when the Constitution was still young and being shaken into place. And we had the first DCJ being shown the door because of pinching, the nose of a security guard. Do you think in any way, and from your own assessment, the current DCJ will stand a chance of remaining in office? Let's just begin with you with Dr. Hassan.
It's always refreshing when there's at least an appearance that sharks are not just omenas being caught in this fight against corruption. Now, while we do not have sufficient complete information with regard to whether she is in fact guilty, so we can't really comment on that until the case is dealt with. Now, this is particularly significant in part because the DCJ is essentially the vice president of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And you know that three arms of government, you know, the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive. And what my hope here is that government has sufficient evidence, because there is a risk of over-promising and then under-delivering. If we do not have sufficient evidence to prosecute the people we've put before court, especially the big fish, it may start appearing in the eyes of the public as if it was just a show and it will not amount to much, or it could be a political witch hunt. And so I think we have to be very careful that before, especially high-profile people are put before the court and charged, there is sufficient evidence to make sure they're actually going to suffer the consequence in case they're guilty. Because we've seen in the last couple of weeks, of course, very high-profile people, then currently they're out on bail, as we have seen before. And if nothing is done beyond this, it's going to kill the spirit and the morale of a lot of Kenyans and even people who are actually contributing in terms of supplying information to fight corruption.
All right. Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Debarl, the corruption that we've seen in this country has crossed the moral Rubicon. And it's very important that it's fought, and whoever is responsible and is suspected to have been involved in corruption should be brought to the book. Debarl, however, allow me to mention something here. I saw the NCCK Secretary General saying that amnesty should be given to those who are corrupt. Now, for something like corruption, which has clearly crossed the moral threshold, and for a church which should be on the side of fighting corruption and supporting the fight against corruption, I wish you could bring back that cartoon that you have there.
Which one is this?
On those who are
the church,
giving a lot of money to churches.
Let me just put it up.
And of course also to mosques. To say that amnesty should be given at this point is highly suspicious. And let us call all the men and women of the cloth, religious leaders and faith institutions, to rally behind the President of the Republic of Kenya to fight corruption. This we have to call out, Debarl.
You have to call it out. Right, so, but amnesty, is amnesty also not taking the aspect of restitution? That people who have actually stolen, maybe they should not go really to the slummers, but we should bring back, you know, the monies that you've actually stolen. Maybe that is another option that they were taking, that, yeah, you have an amnesty, but also there is amnesty with restitution, right, underpinning it. I don't know which way we can actually talk about it. So, and I know when we are talking about bail, the human rights, like the Amnesty International, will come and say, yeah, this is a constitutional right that is, of course, enshrined and codified within our constitution, that we should observe, that everyone has a right to have a bail. So that has been a bit contentious. But let's hear from Ambassador Rasas Boncha.
Debarl, just to build on what my two colleagues have said, corruption has crossed the Rubicon, because I was looking at the figures, and it's startling that Kenya loses about 1 trillion shillings through corruption. I mean, you can see it direct, even the figures are the public domain. Out of a budget of 2.6 trillion, it means that we are spending, I mean, we are losing almost 40% of our budget through corruption. That is not acceptable at all. And you can go down what that impact has in the economy. I mean, the unemployment, the deaths in hospital, and the rest.
Yes.
That is not the story for today. But I think the question that you are asking now, how do we move forward from here? My fear, and this is what Hassan said, you see, if you look at the corruption cases that we have had in the past, from Golden Bag, Anglo Leasing, the prosecution seems to go on forever. You arrest, high profile, you take them to court, but nothing happens thereafter, either for lack of evidence or the judicial system, where people come and the cases are adjourned, causing a lot of pain to people. I am not sure that the way we are doing it, we are going to get anywhere now. I mean, that's my doubt right now, because already there's so many cases piling, and you can hear now they're talking of October, November, so they will be appearing and then they say come back in March, and the public will start to lose that patience. because everybody is behind the president's effort right now. Let's fight it. But let's then have a direction. Let's not, people start saying, and you can see already voices out there saying, people saying, oh, it's selective, whatever it is. And that is because we don't seem to see a direction it's taking. I would suggest here that first and foremost, perhaps we should think of setting up a mechanism to dispose of these causes, not going through this legal process as it is at the moment. Otherwise, we'll go forever. That may mean create a special court which may not even allow appeals and dispose of these cases quickly. Secondly, the manner in which you should go about arresting all this. It's a public domain there. People know what has happened. I mean, people who are built on land that was badly acquired or riparian, whatever. Let's not seem to be targeting the weak. Let's go for everybody. And thirdly, for the church to say, okay, let's forget. But they fail. Even in the church, I mean, if you go in the Bible, Zacchaeus and the rest, if they had stolen, they came and said, I bring back the money I stole from people and make good, and then we can move forward from there. So let them come and deposit all that money back in the banks, and then we can move. But then ethics should kick in.
Thank you.
And make sure that they don't have a political office, because otherwise you'll have a state capture, like what has happened.
Right, let's hear from Professor Nomi Damba.
Debarl was in my village in Kindu Bay, talking to young children. And a 6-year-old look at me and say, Uncle, by the time I get older, all these corruption issues will be over. And I had to talk to the young lady for quite a while to make her understand, yes, Kenya can do everything, but corruption will consistently, some part of it will consistently be there. And so she will have to fight as well. Debarl, this is unfortunate development and also positive development. It is unfortunate that the highest court of land, people who are supposed to be unapproachable, people who are symbol of wisdom, people who are supposed to hold the highest moral aptitude, has now crumbled to this stage. And it is positive that no cow is going to be left, big and small, in our fight to stamp out corruption. Let me say this, Debarl. This lady who's just taken over NYS said, find me at Langata prison if you unearth scandal at NYS. And she went ahead by saying, my salary is more than I need. The only thing I can do is assist my brother's children. I don't have the aptitude to steal. I wish every public person, I wish every public officers can understand what this lady is saying, because there is no development going to take place. We cannot move in this country unless we stamp corruption completely out of our system.
Thank you. Right, let's hear from Irungu Hyotoro. Good morning.
Good morning. First, just to say that, you know, we live in very dramatic times. And I think, you know, not just the case that we've seen unfolding yesterday, but even the other 15 cases of, you know, governors, principal secretaries, and also heads of statutory commissions, but also parastatals. So I think this is an interesting development within the war of, against corruption. I think for, you know, most of the people that I've spoken to, their real concern is that this does not degenerate into a political witch hunt. And I think I was glad to hear the president say that on return from the US again yesterday, that this was not the case. Obviously, the DCJ has the right to bail. She has she has the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and she should be handled within the, I guess, the protection of the law for all suspects. But I think this is an interesting moment. I mean, the choice of taking such a high-ranking judicial officer to a court rather than referring them to the Judicial Service Commission is one interesting twist assist in this. I mean, we've had cases of the JSC being the main focus, but this has really gone to court, and this is probably the first time in Kenyan history, or at least since the Constitution came out, that this has happened. Questions need to be asked a little bit, because many of the allegations that are being raised here are allegations that presumably could have been dealt with in the clearance stage. Less than 2 years ago, the DCJ went through a process of review either by the Kenya Revenue Authority or by the Directorate of Criminal Intelligence. And it's funny that it was not captured. So maybe we need to look again at the process by which people come to state office and are appointed. I think the other thing that was remarkable for me was the Director of Public Prosecution's position. His statement yesterday was not just a typical statement of a DPP, but it was also a statement on the moral crisis. I think he called it the system of chaos that we've seen. I sometimes have said that most Kenyans are suffering from one common disease, and that's called corruption stress disorder, that we continue to be hammered by cases of corruption, to a point that actually I think many of us need to go for counseling. But I think what we've seen in the last 24 hours will play out in very interesting ways.
Right, and of course we have that particular statement also from the DPP. He says, just to see, I can just pick it up so that you can read also for yourself on the screen. The fight has seen several high-ranking officials and entities charged with various offenses, including assets forfeiture and confiscation. In this regard, the DCI forwarded to me an investigation file relating to Deputy CJ, which I have perused and given directions. And this afternoon, I informed Chief Justice David Maraga of my decision to grant consent for the arrest and prosecution of Deputy Chief Justice Lady Justice Philomena Mbete Mwilu on criminal charges. This decision has not been taken lightly, but it is the right decision under the law. Most of us in the office of a public prosecutor are indeed officers of a court, and the dignity and independence of a judiciary is dear to us. I believe that judges in a democracy such as ours must be totally free to exercise their judgment in a societal environment that supports and protects them. Indeed, the precepts and principles of the Constitution must be our guide at all times. This is what the statement reads. And of course, it's a long one. I can't be able to read all of it during this session. But just hearing that, of course, when we know, and you've mentioned, when we have, the Supreme Court or the judiciary, where we expect, high moral conduct, everyone to be above reproach, and of course, nobility of character is very key. Does this also epitomize the sort of situation we are in as a country? When we characterize Kenya, what will we say is the character of Kenya? Dr. Hassan Khanenje.
I'm always one person who likes to be positive and to look at my country in a more positive lens.
Yes.
Sometimes the challenge is you are bombarded with an avalanche of bad news every morning that it becomes kind of a challenge to actually describe our character in a positive way. Now, the truth is we are a very industrious nation. We are a very industrious and very hardworking people. I think the challenge has been in the, I think, words of the late Ali Mazrui, we succeeded in borrowing the appetites of the colonial masters without borrowing the ethics that go in the production or the material to meet those appetites. And so as a nation, I think we're at a crossroads. We are a little bit confused. We are like a teenager who's trying to find their way and their identity. And I hope the current efforts are going to define our identity going forward as a country that's determined to succeed and become a middle-income country, or the more economically advanced country that actually respects the rule of law and advances the values that are based in us.
All right, Dr. Mustafa?
Yeah, Debarl, corruption has, that is seething, has taken Kenya back as a country. If you look in the region, Ethiopia is moving forward. Tanzania is moving forward. Countries are repositioning themselves to be leaders, and they look at Kenya, a country that has geopolitically has been a leader in the region, is being looked at as a country that has been going backwards. Of course, there's renewed energy, and Dr. Kanenje talks about Kenya. Kenyans are very industrious, hardworking. The recent survey done in the US indicated that Kenya came number 3. It's the most industrious, hardworking people in the United States of America after Ghana and Bulgaria. But there's this thing that is pulling us down, and that is corruption. It is a national disaster, a threat to national security, and is not taking us or rather is undermining the speed with which Kenya should be moving. And if we don't fight this corruption with extraordinary measures, because it is an extraordinary problem and a challenge to this country, then we are not going to succeed. And if Uhuru is going to fail in this, I don't see any other person who's going to really succeed in fighting corruption. This is the time that we must fight. And again, we must call on the faith leaders in this country, everybody, to rally behind the president in the fight against corruption.
All right. There has been also this assumption that the governors are not really, joining the bandwagon in fighting corruption as well. We haven't seen anyone who's really coming to the fore to, stick, their hold with this particular fight on corruption that has gained momentum right now. Let's hear from Erastus Mwansha.
Just an addition to what Hassan and staff have said, the country has gained such bad reputation, even in the global arena, because Kenya today is ranked 143 out of 108 countries as the most corrupt country. And if you see the countries that are in the pack, if you divide the countries that are with Kenya, it's very sad. And that has a meaning at the end of the day, because it means an investor coming here has to factor in corruption. And that means an investment fails because of that. And one can go on and on. And if you look at why do people, pay corruption, it has become a norm. A survey, somebody will say, if you don't pay, you will not get service. You go to hospital, you are queuing, you have to pay it so that you can get your file. You see even in the matatu, somebody overtakes you from the left because he knows that the police ahead, you have 100 shillings, you give them and you continue breaking the law. It is bad. And as you say, why are the governors and the rest not in the queue? Because I think right now, wherever they are sitting, they must be shaking, because the fight that the president has started needed support for everybody. But they are also dipping their hands in the till, so they are not going to be able to speak much. And that's why I was happy to see even the previous ones who have been in the office, they have been taken to court. And even these who are sitting, if they are stealing, let them know that they will be followed, like what has happened in the Nairobi case here. So I think what we need is really to guard the little resources we have so that we can create a better society. Kenya shouldn't be in the league where we are. We should be in the league of, Malaysia and the rest. Right. But we have been held back because of corruption.
I mean, but you still think that this is all about style and no substance? Or maybe
I think this is substantive. It is actually a significant moment in the war against corruption. I think we have to recognize that, whether she's exonerated or whether she's finally convicted of this. But I think for many Kenyans, I think as a country we grapple with this issue.
Yes.
On one hand, we say, if you're going for that person, why aren't you going for this person?
Yes.
Which in a sense sometimes is used to invalidate the positive action that's being taken. I think what we want to see is that that the fight against corruption is undertaken without fear of favor. And in this regard, perhaps we need to see also some action around the National Assembly. It's only a couple of weeks since we heard the horror stories of 10,000 shillings being enough to close our legislators' eyes and ears to the sugar scandal that has threatened most of us. And just to say on this panel, I think fewer and fewer of us on this panel are drinking coffee this morning with sugar, because many of us have moved to honey because we just don't trust the process. And some of us are giving up rice, and at some point we're going to have to stop eating anything that is potentially. So I think there is an important moment here where we need to ask, whether this will move into different sectors. And I think the National Assembly is probably an area where there needs to be a bit of vigilance, not just from the DCI and from the DPP, but even from the legislators themselves.
Correct.
Right, Professor Nomi Damba.
Debarl, I think Mustafa said it right when he said these are extraordinary times, which I add require extraordinary action. There is one example among the governors, and that is Kebutha Kebwana, who has fought this war from the beginning when he entered the office. Today is an example, and I'm very happy that a group of governors are going there to learn what McQueen is doing as far as governance is concerned, and also healthcare. Now, this is our war. This is not only the president war. So long as everybody look at it as the president war, will be defeated, because our externalities, which is our reputation, is ensemble. And we have great things happening in this country that every single one of us cannot accept that. And so this lady who has taken over NYS is an example of Kenya, who is now standing and say, if I do anything, take me to Langata prison. It has to happen from little children to every single person in the village, to any public person. When you see something, don't say it and expect somebody to take care of it. You take care of it yourself.
Right, thank you. And of course, we want to also look at that particular issue where they're saying that the National Council of Churches of Kenya is proposing an amnesty. And this is very interesting as well. The National Council of Churches of Kenya has proposed a one-year amnesty for corrupt individuals to declare and surrender all illegally acquired funds. Those who fail to take up the offer, the church said, should be jailed for life, and the funds they acquired corruptly be recovered from them. And CCK General Secretary Peter Karanja spoke during the 63rd National Council of Churches of Kenya General Assembly in Kikambala, Kilifi County, where Deputy President William Ruto was the chief guest. Let's just take a listen.
The wisdom, Your Excellency, of the NCCK Executive Committee meeting includes the possibility of offering amnesty for past corruption to provide a critical incentive for beneficiaries of corruption to repent and turn their lives around, speed up justice for Kenyans who have suffered immensely on account of corruption, while enabling us to clean up our pasts as a nation.
So why should they get amnesty? That will be the question, Irungu Houghton.
So just with a light touch, my colleagues would argue that we need to copyright amnesty in this context. We're not happy with this use of the term. No, I think I'm not inspired by this argument. It doesn't inspire me. No. Why doesn't it inspire me? I think it doesn't inspire me because it essentially allows for a free pass in a context in which I think the country has gone too far. And if we talk about the system of chaos, then I think we have to recognize that this has just really gone too far. I think it's important to think about, what other things could be done. So, for example, if the NCCK were to announce today that they will return all the contributions that have been made at the pulpit, that have been made during Sadaka, on the understanding, on the basis of any contributions that have been made by a state officer or a private citizen that is linked to a statutory report. So any state officer that has been implicated either in a National Assembly report Public Accounts and Public Investment Committee report, or the Auditor General's report. So any state officer that has given a contribution to the church, that they are returning that to the exchequer to be applied to, health or the right to housing and so on. That, I think, would have a much more inspirational impact on me. And I think that's the first question that we would ask of the religious leadership, is that are they willing to give back the proceeds of corruption that, to be honest, have been laundered through our places of worship for too long now.
All right. Let's hear from Hassan Kanenje.
That was exactly my point, actually. Now, the
I'm
challenge...
glad I consulted you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I think you cannot give amnesty to individuals who've literally engaging in economic sabotage. That is sending a very wrong message, to other hard-working Kenyans. Number two, this increasing tendency for religious organizations to actually accept dirty money makes God look corrupt, and it does not inspire us a lot in going to church or the mosque. If we know that this mosque or this church was built from corrupt money, it makes people lose faith, even in church and rather religious institutions. And I think all of us on this panel understand the role that the church played in the 80s and in the 90s in the democratization, opening up the political space in this country, and just holding us to a higher moral standard as a country. And I think the church should go back to actually doing that a whole lot more actively. They've been taking a back seat. They might not like what I'm saying right now, but it's actually true. And people who believe in this country long enough, they know that. Now, having said that, the individuals who've been involved in corrupt practices, other than extending them a blanket amnesty, we should interrogate and perhaps blackmail them from giving us contributions to start with. Because by so doing, in their mind, they think they're sanitizing their looted wealth by giving a tithe or a tenth of that to the church or to the mosque. And churches and mosques should actually say, in case you've been mentioned in A, B, C, and D, unless your name is cleared, we're not going to accept your money, period.
Right. Let's hear from...
Debarl, the church is getting this all wrong. And just to quote the scriptures, faith, religious leaders are supposed to be the salt of the earth and the light in darkness. Now when faith leaders are losing that saltiness and the light is dimming, where else are we going to find the salt and the light? Now, in the first place, it is because the faith sector, if I may call it that way, have actually failed in inculcating moral principles in these politicians who attend church, who attend the mosque on weekly basis, and that's why they are stealing in the first place, and sanitizing part of the loot by contributing to building places of worship and religious faith-based schools around the country. We cannot allow that to happen, and we must ask religious leaders to come out and support this fight against corruption. What essentially NCCK is doing is really sending a wrong message to the entire country and undermining the fight against corruption, period.
Thank you. I think we should take a short break right now. When we talk about, of course, we shall continue with this particular discussion and a lot of other issues as far as international news is concerned. We see also how that particular peace deal in South Sudan is faring on. Of course, there has been toeing and froing on it. So we want to hear also from our panelists what is the way forward. And still, we are asking for the release of one of our panelists who has been in incarceration now. It has been a month. This is Dr. Peter Biarajak, who is the chairperson of the South Sudan Young Leaders Forum. He's still in custody and has not been taken to court yet. We shall be discussing this and a raft of other issues as far as also the South Sudan peace is concerned. So don't go away, much more coming up on the other side of a break. Welcome back. You're watching Standing on Guard here on AM Live, where we stand and, of course, we keep an eye on the enemy. We want to see what is happening on the international front. Now, South Sudan's opposition parties have rejected what was supposed to be the final version of the peace agreement with the government, threatening to destabilize an already fragile process. On Tuesday, opposition leader and former Vice President Riek Machar and the South Sudan Opposition Alliance, the umbrella group of the splintered opposition parties, refused to initiate. Heading so far, and for the longest time we've been toying and froing on this issue, and it seems we never come to a conclusive end, and we do not know why they keep on promising, and also they flinch also on their promises as well. Let's just begin from the recent development with this, because we are given to understand it is the opposition parties. It is not just Riek Machar. I don't know which other opposition parties, but you are the experts who can tell me this morning so far. Where are we headed with this? Let's just begin with you, Dr. Khaninje.
Now, among the parties that were prominent in refusing to sign the deal, of course, was the main party, Riek Machar. And even though some of the wording, especially in the report, has said opposition parties, it has been largely Riek Machar. And in the last couple hours, while you guys were asleep, he actually agreed to sign the draft.
But do we have any verified information on this?
Yes, exactly. It's been sent out there. It's not exactly been published, but the information is out there. He has agreed to sign the peace deal. And some of the sticking points were with regard to the transition arrangement, the states and how they're going to apportion those positions. Remember, it's not just the ministerial and cabinet positions alone. It is countrywide, the national positions. And so Machar claimed that the mediators had not consulted with him when they were drafting the final agreement. And so he had raised it, but they were not exactly worked on. So especially the Sudanese mediators, who now went back to work with him and iron out the details. And I think today, later on, we should be able to get complete details of the final agreement between the warring parties in South Sudan.
Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Debarl, I think it's a positive move that Riek Machar and the opposition are going to sign or have signed the details of the peace agreement. But the fact that you still have this back and forth is still an indicator that there is no trust. There is both parties, Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, are still, particularly those two, are still operating under a difficult cloud of mistrust, distrust, and it's going to be very difficult for South Sudan to see how the peace deal is going to be enacted and how it's going to be implemented in the context of distrust and mistrust, particularly between those two leaders. And it's up to the South Sudanese people. And again, we call on the leaders of South Sudan, particularly Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, to exercise statesmanship and help in I'm sure they've mentored many young leaders, and have those young leaders come and help and take our position so that they can continue to advise the younger generation in South Sudan to push that country forward.
All right, Ambassador.
You know, the process for peacemaking is as important as the outcome document. And what has always been a challenge is to get brokers of peace who are seen to be neutral, but also who are not seen to be leaning in any direction. You know, for historical or whatever. And to me, this is the challenge I've always had with the South Sudan peace process, because the regional leaders who have taken this task at hand are doing a good job, yes, but they are interested parties in many ways. They should have had really a neutral party doing this right from the beginning, because having this peace process in Khartoum, somebody will always see something else. In fact, if you remember, they were supposed to more or less go around, go to Uganda, come to Kenya, and that has not happened. And they seem to be now stuck in Khartoum. Well and good. I have no problem with the Khartoum, but the problem then you see in the long run is if this fails, then some leaders would then jeopardize that process, because there will be something in it they will not agree with it. And that is where the problem is going to be. So what I would suggest here is let's for goodness sake appeal to the two protagonists that the people of South Sudan cannot continue to suffer this way. Otherwise, as we have said before, I think it's important for the two to step aside and leave a process that will bring new leaders to this deal. Otherwise, and we have said it before, the two are not going to be easily agreed.
All right. Professor Naomi Damba.
Debarl, what is clear from the beginning and among these people is not about the country. It's about these cows which has been slaughtered, and you know, how much meat can I get out of it? That's the issue. And so long as that is the focus, they're not going to go anywhere in terms of development. So there has to be the next process, next evolution, to have a new group of leaders, like my friend Ambassador just said. These people cannot lead the country. They're going to continue to fight one way or another.
All right. Let's just hear from Irungu Houghton.
Leadership always has three choices, I think. The first is lead, the second is follow, and the third one, step aside. And I think what the panel has said so far is that really we look forward to a time when the agreement is signed and that it is implemented. And the hope that we have, I think, in many ways is that the agreement is not just about power sharing, but really goes to the heart of the inequalities, the bad governance that we've seen in South Sudan. And in particular, I think one of the costs of a delayed agreement is the languishing in prisons and in various detention centers of scores of political prisoners, people who have tried through their conscience to provide leadership in the absence of the leadership that has been there, and have found themselves in the detention. And I just want to bring up the case of Peter Birajak again, because it's now 32 days since he's been detained. Family members are saying that it's causing a tremendous toll on his family. He has two children, a 5-year-old and an 18-month baby. Family members have had to go back and forth between Juba and Nairobi to find out what's happening, to see him. And as we speak now, there is no formal prosecution of Peter in any Juba court. And I think for many of us who know Peter, once again, we are struck by delays on the power sharing side, but also delays on the release of Peter and many other people in South Sudan. So I just want to say, and I hope we are not taking this too far, but I think we need to actually say this. It's time to free Peter Birajak now. And the hashtag free, I can't read backwards, but Peter Ajak. Many of us have signed the petition. I think it's now reached 65,000 people. But if you've not signed this and you're watching this, please, my request is on behalf of the family, on behalf of the nation of South Sudan, please sign this and make sure that we can bring Peter back to his family.
Yes, and of course, if you have access to, of course, the internet, we'll share with you that particular link that you can sign the petition as well. Peter has been very vocal as far as the peace process in South Sudan is concerned, and we, as you know, fellow panelists here, your panelists and the hosts as well, we feel aggrieved that yes, up to now nothing has actually happened to Peter Biara Jack. It's 1 month and the family is also suffering. You just heard that yes, there's an 18-month-old baby who needs the father, but he's still in the slumbers. So as far as also the peace deal is concerned with this, can we have also people who have been put in the slumbers and fairly also given justice as well? But do you think finally if Riek Machar has agreed to sign on this particular peace deal, this will be the ultimate, you know, the ultimate, what should I say, the ultimate action as far as the peace deal is concerned?
Debarl, peacemaking is not an event, it's a process. There are going to be fissures, there are going to be failings here and there, there are going to be disagreements, frankly speaking. Especially once the implementation starts. Some people are going to discover things they should have raised in the process, and we're still going to expect that South Sudan needs to face some challenges, not least because it appears as if it's an elite pacting thing. It's being shared just among the conflictants in South Sudan. And a great majority of South Sudanese in the civil society and the like have been left out. So over time, unless that dynamic is changed and we move away from sharing the power between the political leaders and actually sharing the power that addresses the economics and the politics and the social well-being of South Sudanese, it's still going to be a challenge. But this is a good start. Compared to previous peace agreements, I think there's a fundamental shift to durability when you look at the terms and some of the contents of the peace agreement. So we are hopeful, but we're not out of the woods yet in as far as South Sudan is concerned.
Mm-hmm. And on Peter, maybe just to support what Irungu Hito is saying?
On Peter.
On Peter. For those of you who watch this show, and Kenyans and South Sudanese who live in this country in large numbers, in this city, they are in large numbers, Peter is a real South Sudanese patriot. He's once I referred to him as an equal opportunity critic, meaning he does not exactly favor one side or the other, but his kind of criticism tends to be constructive. He's done a lot to actually advance the cause of South Sudan. It's not just regionally, but internationally. There are lots of forums that Peter speaks about South Sudanese in a way that very few people out there actually can. Not to mention, he's the first Cambridge PhD from South Sudan. You would expect the country to be very proud of him. And we very saddened on this panel, and a lot of us sometimes go to bed, really wondering what is likely to happen to Peter. And one thing we are asking the government of South Sudan is to do the right thing and release Peter, or at least present him to court and charge him accordingly, so we know exactly what he has done and find a way of getting him out. Because at this stage, this is unsustainable, and especially at the time when South Sudanese are signing a peace agreement that promises to give peace to South Sudan, when you're busy locking out other people that you perceive to be either your challengers, your opponents to your ideas. I think the South Sudanese government should do the right thing, and what I'm hoping is our Ministry of Foreign Affairs should appeal to the South Sudanese government to actually release Peter Biara Jack.
All right. Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Debarl, conflict transformation is a process, painstakingly slow, and it's going to take time for South Sudan to address the challenges that they've been going through. And to address the challenges, there is an analogy we normally use in conflict a resolution or transformation, peeling the onion. When you're peeling the onion to get to the core of what you need, it's teary. It's if you put it close to your face, you're going to feel the fumes. It's not an easy process. It calls for leadership, statesmanship. It calls for a lot of things. South Sudanese people are going to have to agree and know that they are not going to have everything. And it starts with the belligerents, the main belligerents, the leaders themselves that are fighting one another. And I haven't seen the details of the recent agreement, but if it does not have a clause on how perhaps Salva Kiir and Riek Machar are going to exit the scene, elections, further democratization of the southern Sudanese people, then it's going to be hard. The other thing that I have to mention here is the trauma that the people of South Sudan have had to undergo over 50 years. Now, that in particular is also causing the problem, that there's not been trauma healing in South Sudan. Is something that you see repeatedly coming up and rearing its ugly head, that when people in South Sudan disagree, even over very flimsy reasons and issues, they resort to guns and fighting and killing one another because of trauma. We need to work with the people of South Sudan. The regional countries need to put their interests aside and work with the people of South Sudan to get back the peace, but the buck stops with Salva Kiir and Riek Machar.
Debarl, can I jump in there? Just because there's something that occurred to me actually that wasn't in my mind. In 1994, I attended the Pan-African Congress in Kampala. I was a bit younger then, and just as an anecdote, I sold daily newspapers to now Presidents Kagame, Museveni, the late John Garang. In fact, he still owes me money for a newspaper that I sold him. I think there was a younger Afawaki from Eritrea. So I was part of an editorial team that was doing the conference newsletter. And at that time, I was very conscious of the fact that this was the emerging leadership across Africa. I think even J.J. Rawlings was part of that group at that point. There is a link between Bobby Wine, Peter Bierjak, and also Diane Rwigara, the presidential candidate from Rwanda, that I think we need to draw as an interesting link. These are young people. They are taking up, very ambitious political projects. They seek to serve their countries. And in all the three cases, fortunately for Bobby Wine, we saw that he received bail and has now sought medical attention. And I think we can congratulate all the people from the region that basically prevailed on the Ugandan government to essentially come back to the rule of law and offer bail to Bobby. I think the thing that's interesting for me is how do the leadership begin to see transition from themselves to the next generation? And what we know from places like Zimbabwe is that where the leadership does not see their transition and does not prepare effectively for it, it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well. And I think this linkage between Diane, Bobby Wine, and Peter is an important one for us to draw at a time like this.
Right, and there on your screen, of course, you have the web page. This is change.org, Freedom for Peter Bierjak. So far, actually, that particular petition has risen to 70,316. It's still rising. So
those are AM Live viewers, I think. Huh? It wasn't that this morning.
Yes, please, AM Live. If you're watching this morning, please, you can sign the petition. You can head over to change.org and just sign in there. Of course, you can put in all your details there, and then you can sign over here so that at least this can go to 100,000, which is the targeted number. And of course, you can read about Peter Bierjak. He's here. Was arrested in South Sudan on July the 28th. Peter is a youth advocate for peace and a friend and inspiration to many who know him around the world. He's currently being held without charge at the notorious South Sudanese prison known as the Blue House. His friends at universities, human rights institutions, media organizations, and other around the world are calling for his release. And it continues on and on. It says Peter's arrest comes amid a worrying trend in arbitrary detentions due to a crackdown on freedom of expression by the South Sudanese government. Amnesty International reports numerous reasons to arrest without charges. This goes against South Sudan's constitution, which states no one can be held without charge for more than 24 hours. And you can follow all that particular story there. I cannot be able to read all of this. And it's just good to note that, yes, his inspiration story was recognized when he He became an Atlantic Council Millennium Fellow and a Desmond Tutu Leadership Fellow. And in June, Peter was awarded the Crans Montana Forum's New Leader for Tomorrow by His Excellency Musa Traore, former president of Mali. You can read on this particular story here on change.org, all about Peter Berejak. Let's hear from Ambassador Erastus Mwencha.
I think I can only build on what my colleagues have said. You cannot hold peace on one hand and then a sword on the other. You are in the peacemaking process. You are holding people and disregarding rule of law, which is ingrained in the Constitution. For those who know Peter, and those of us who have talked to him, I really have serious concerns at the fact that he's been there for 32 days and no charges have been preferred. The family is not even allowed to have access to him. That is contrary. I mean, if you look at what has happened between US and Turkey, it is over people who are allegedly, against the state who were put in, and Turkey was flexing its muscles, and the US decided to pull the rug out under their feet. And you see what happened with Turkey? I think let's put pressure on South Sudan, just in the same way that Turkey was forced to relent, to say, if indeed you are genuinely seeking for peace, release all prisoners of conscience.
All right, finally, let's hear from Professor Naomi Damba.
Debarl, Europe went through catastrophe for many, many years until the Second World War. And after that, they created peace, stability, and good government. And Europe has been stable since then. The question is, whether it is Riek Machar or Salva Kiir and all these people, they are not going to stop their own war unless there is consequences. Consequences of AU membership and expected behavior, IGAD membership, the East Africa community. We cannot accept this. And the moment these people are going to begin to understand the pressure surrounding them, the better they are going to behave. Because the young people are unsettled, like Peter, and they are not going to settle until good governance is created that will engineer the country development into the future.
Right, thank you. Right, we're going to see also what is happening in Congo right now, where we're given to understand that the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has called on judges to convict a former Congo military leader on charges ranging from murder and rape to conscripting child soldiers and sexual slavery. multinational countries in Africa will affect Africa, especially Kenya as well. And we know President Uhuru Kenyatta is back in the country, but also previously gave an interview, and he talked about the Belt and Road Initiative, which will help link the African continent, according to President Uhuru Kenyatta. President Uhuru Kenyatta made the remarks recently with the China Global Television Network ahead of a Beijing summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which is scheduled on September the 3rd and 4th. China and Kenya have built and maintained solid relations since the establishment of diplomatic ties in 1963, and Kenya is set to play an important role in China's Belt and Road Initiative. Kenyatta added that he believes it has huge potential for all who are involved, and that is why they are very keen as a country. And he believes also the continent to partner strongly with China in this initiative. Infrastructure funding has always been a big problem for African countries. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, Kenya has received funding in infrastructure construction.
I think it is tremendous. Because what is the objective? The objective is to open up our economies to trade. The objective is to encourage trade amongst us, connecting Asia, parts of Europe, through the Gulf region, Arab states, linking ourselves all the way through the African continent, from the eastern side of Africa all the way across to the west, right? And I believe it has huge potential for a win-win situation for all who are involved. And that is why we are very keen as a country, and I believe also as a continent, to partner strongly with China in this initiative. Well, definitely we're working with development partners. Our friends in China have been of huge assistance. Since China became strongly involved in Kenya and in Africa, you've seen the tremendous growth in infrastructure across the continent.
So he's back in the country, but we also want to see what was the communication and the conversation that they had with President Donald Trump in the United States. And of course, this is all about bilateral relations. We will hear what President Uhuru Kenyatta and Donald Trump had to say momentarily. And we know that, yes, they signed a big deal, Irungi Houghton, as far as bilateral is concerned with Kenya. So how will this also reconfigure the foreign relations or the foreign policy of Kenya? We know Theresa May will be in the country tomorrow. Also, we do know that the president will be heading also to China for this particular forum that we just had about the Belt Road Initiative as well. But just let's listen in to what they had to talk about during that meeting in White House.
Thank you. To have President Kenyatta of Kenya and First Lady Kenyatta, thank you very much for being here. It's a great honor. We have tremendous relationship with Kenya. We have terrorism, a lot of trade, getting bigger and bigger all the time. We're working on a major infrastructure project, a massive roadway that will be record-setting in many ways. And we are going to conclude a lot of good things. We have the President's representatives in the next room, and we're going to be going in there, and we're going to be making some great deals for both countries. So thank you very much, both, for being here. This is a tremendous honor. Thank you.
Great pleasure. Wonderful to have us. Thank you. We appreciate it. I want to just take this opportunity to thank Mr. President and First Lady for welcoming us here to the White House. As President Trump has said, Kenya and the United States have had strong, solid relationships ever since our independence. We are here to renew that partnership. We're here to strengthen it. We've had very good and excellent cooperation, especially in our fight against terrorism because of the neighborhood that we're in. Al-Shabaab fights, which the United States have been a very strong and solid partner. But more importantly, we're here to pursue and to strengthen our trade and investment ties, which are already very strong. We have a good number of American companies in Kenya, and we want to see how we can strengthen that going forward for the mutual benefit of our two countries. And I believe that we will have very fruitful discussions this afternoon, and we'll have a lot to report at the end of it. Well, thank you once again, Mr. President, for welcoming us to the White House.
Great honor.
Happy to be with you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Milan. Afternoon, and we'll.
Right, so we are, of course, keeping the West and looking to the East as well. And this has been aptly captured also by Stano in the People Daily today. Why is everyone having a flash of interest to this particular girl, pretty one, the African girl, or the Kenyan girl? Let's start with the Rungu Hilton.
So I think we have to start with the two cartoons, Stano's and then also Victor Ndula's. Victor Ndula had a different take on this, which was that there was, I think it was an image of Uhuru Kenyatta cutting.
I'll put it up in a moment.
Yes, and he was saying, you know, we have the best steak. And I think for most Kenyans, obviously the two issues, I guess, are not at the heart of the conversations. What's at the heart of this assertive foreign policy and diplomatic initiative with the Chinese, the Brits, the British and the Americans is commercial trade interests. And I think it's good to see Kenya pursuing these interests. What's not usually very clear for us is what are some of the trade-offs that are being taken. So, for example, we know there are tensions between the deal that is being made on the Mombasa Road and the tremendous investment and loans that we have incurred in the special gauge railway. So the first question is, how are those two investments going to play out in the interests of the Kenyan public? Mm-hmm. The second area, I think, and this is again with a light touch, and maybe this could have been a cartoon. If I was a cartoonist, I would probably have done this. You know, there was a lot of chatter on social media yesterday with regards to the photograph of the two negotiating teams on the American side and the Kenyan side. And if you saw the picture, you could be mistaken for thinking this was just man talk. You know, there were a lot of white men on one side and a lot of black men on the other side.
I think we have that particular clip. We'll play it in a moment.
I won't embarrass my negotiating team because I want them to do the best for Kenya, but very few notebooks on our side and pieces of paper.
Not few, only one notebook.
Okay, let us do it there. I was trying to be good to them. But I just want to acknowledge that the presence of Presidential Advisor Ruth Kagia and also our Trade Secretary, our Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary, Monica Juma, they were the two women that were prominent in that room. So at least on our side, we're slightly better than the Americans on gender diversity. But I'm sure all of them could have been hauled to court on constitutional grounds that they have not met the two-thirds principle. But more seriously, I think what's important is to see Kenya not as being on the table or being on the menu for three big superpowers, but really for us to be essentially negotiating in the best interests of our country with these three very powerful economies. We would have liked to have seen a little more focus in the American trip on the issue of refugees, both in Kenya and America. The two countries host a large number of refugees and have been doing this for many years. America is one of the biggest contributors to refugee protection work. Kenya, as we know, hosts just under 500,000 people in our major camps, Kakuma and Dadaab. And I think really a conversation could have happened which would link with the war against terror, although I think those two things are often collapsed a bit too fast. But I think there should have been a conversation on, you know, kind of how do we go beyond the separation of families policy in the US, and also how do we accelerate registration of refugees in Kenya. And these were some of the issues that I don't think are on the table, but would have been good to have seen a conversation on that as well.
On the security aspect, because we don't really have
security issue.
Yeah, we don't really have the details about the conversation and the deal that was made as well. But on security aspect, we understand also Theresa May will be coming here in the country, and Britain also, they've sent a troop of soldiers back to South Sudan. Well, what is your taking on this?
First of all,
just comment on, of course, comment on the President Donald Trump and Uhuru, and then we can go back to Theresa May as well.
Generally, I tend not to be a very big fan of politicians, but watching my president, I was actually very proud of him. He looked like he belonged more to the White House than the person who was sitting next to him. He was very eloquent and very articulate in the way he represented us, very mature. He seemed to know that, you know, what took him there. And I just want to say kudos again to our president. That was a job well done.
Yeah.
Now, you know, having said that, it's not surprising that you know, Trump right now is also trying. He's been emphasizing dealing with blocs, especially when it comes to trade. And you have seen what he has done with, you know, European partners or ASEAN countries and Canada. And I think he's favoring dealing bilaterally with a few countries in the hope of course, in line with America First, getting the best back for the American worker. Now, it is true that you know, Kenya is a very beautiful bride, and a number of countries, especially the Chinese, the British and the Americans, are now courting Kenya. But there are also a number of factors internal to those countries. The UK is going through the Brexit, you know, trauma. If it's a hard Brexit, it's going to suffer certain consequences. It's going to need new partners, and it's going to need to sign more bilateral, you know, agreements with other countries or with other organizations, trade organizations. And so it's not just in the interest of us, it's also in their own interest that they actually do this. Now, there are two critical areas in which especially the UK and the United States have, you know, care about with regard to the Horn of Africa, and that is security, the issue of terrorism. I'm not surprised if you're having British military presence or American military presence back into East Africa or the Horn of Africa, in part because they have an interest not just to protect their traditional interests, you know, economically and strategically, but also to deal with the increasing problem of terrorism, which doesn't have any borders. So, you know, as a country, I think we should exploit some of these fissures that are happening in the West, actually, and the East, to try and see how can we make the best out of this. How can we strike deals while things are still hot? The challenge, though, has been that the president's move sometimes is not followed by ministerial or departmental efforts to actually make sure you're going to realize those objectives. Sometimes we say negotiators that have no idea about negotiations. And as a panelist just pointed out, they didn't even have notebooks, you know, so not even taking any notes. Americans tend to be very savvy in how they do things. And yet we are just showing up from different ministers and departments, you know, listening to them. At the end of the day, we end up getting a bad deal. We should follow up and train our negotiators when they are going to strike deals, what to do, how to do it, and you know, what value to add to the country, because that is one area we have actually failed miserably.
Okay, let's just look at that particular clip that you guys are talking about so that people can understand what we are talking about. When they went to negotiate, this is how it looked. Of course, the Kenyan side and the US side, no notebooks at all. Given to understand they're not allowed to carry notebooks, yeah, in the White House.
We are with President Kenyatta of a wonderful country that we do a lot of business with, Kenya. One of the most beautiful countries from what I understand, Mr. President. We have lots of pictures and lots of people that tell me how beautiful your country is. We do a lot of tourism, we do a lot of trade, and we do a lot of defense and security. And we're working very much on security right now. And I appreciate you very much being with us and your staff. This is really great. Your representatives have been dealing with our representatives and making a lot of progress. We're talking about a very major highway, roadway, and that seems to be going along well. That's a very important project, I think, for your country. Absolutely. And so we appreciate very much you being at the White House and being with us, and we look forward to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for a warm welcome. As you said, we've had strong relations that stretch back all the way back to our own independence, and we are here to cement that partnership. We are here to strengthen it. The support that we have received as a country, especially with regard to our security and defense cooperation, has been immense. I had a good opportunity to speak with Mike, both in his former capacity and his current capacity. And we've worked very well together, and I want to take this opportunity to appreciate that. But more importantly, even as we work on these aspects, what's most important, what makes our country survive, is the trade and investment partnership. And this is really what we want to deepen much more as we go forward. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we take our relationship now to the next level for the mutual benefit of our two peoples.
Good. Yeah. Well, you were here on a very special day because the stock market is up almost 300 points today. We just signed a trade agreement with Mexico, and it's a terrific agreement for everybody. It's been in the works for a long time. It's an agreement that a lot of people said couldn't be done, and we did something that was very special. Great for our farmers, our workers, and our stock market just broke 26,000 for the first time ever in the history. So today we have the highest stock price we've ever had. And we're very happy about that. I said that was going to happen, and it's happened. Everything I said is going to happen, it ends up happening. So you picked a good day to come. We're in a very good mood.
Well, let's hope you're going to transfer some of that.
We'll bring that over to Kenya. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Right, talk about the art of a deal. This is the art of a deal that you can see now with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Where were we at? Erastus Mwencha?
Okay. Well, first of all, aside from style and form, and of course President Uhuru looked very comfortable, and because he's in command of the subject, first of all, I mean, you know that he has even been a Minister of Trade before, a Minister of Finance, so he knows this subject very well. And as Hassan was saying, this is a broad moment for Kenya, and you can see Kenya being quoted left and east, I mean left and west. But aside from that, let's go now to the key issues. Unfortunately, you can see that President Trump was playing to the gallery. He was not even addressing the issue before them because I think he was either overexcited or he wasn't properly briefed. But having said that, what are the issues here? And I think they come out very clear. As the President said, he's out for trade. What are the issues on trade? You know, Kenya exports to the U.S. and AGOA. And AGOA is under threat at the moment because the U.S. has been saying this non-reciprocal trade arrangement, and you can see what he has done with NAFTA, what he's doing with all these other TTP. He's going to be throwing out all these trade agreements. So it's good that Kenya negotiates, because if you look at Kenya exports to the U.S., they more or less balance. Almost 500 million worth of goods that go to the dollars from Kenya, and mainly in textiles, where Kenya is penetrating that market. So Kenya should position itself. The only caution I would put here is that the textile sector at the moment, the value addition is a bit low, so we need to develop local content deeper. But also beyond that, let's not forget about the partnership we have in East Africa. And I know that President Uhuru would not yield to that. But I think he also struck a better chord when he said investment. Because if you look at the complaints from Europe and the West has been that Kenya is looking to the east. And yet, these opportunities are not close to them. Let them come and make deals. Of course, they argue that the rest bribe, that's why they don't win deals. That's not the case. As for Theresa May,
let's not go to Theresa May. I think we shall discuss that next.
Theresa May.
Be here. No. Let's not go there.
Then maybe one comment on that.
We are staffed for time, sir. Okay, let's go to Professor Noami Damba.
Debarl, there were 7 issues summarized from this discussion. And I also want to remind our viewers that when Trump came to the office, he called Egyptian president first, then he called South African president, and Nigerian, and Kenya was number 4. This is an extraordinary opportunity for the country. Symbolism, as we discussed, is that there were very few people on our side with copy notebooks and pens, whereas the other side were all busy. But these 7 points are very important. Number 1, peace, stability, and good governance on both sides. Have an annual dialogue to enhance mutual prosperity, commitment to continue counter-terrorism. Number 4, to enhance security cooperation with Kenya, and they will expect Kenya to buy their military equipment, and to establish U.S.-Kenya trade and investment working group. I think that is very, very crucial. And also to announce direct flight, which is already been established. And finally, there was about 900 billion worth of goods presented on the table. We don't know what the deal is. But here's my point. My point is we need to be extra careful with whatever Trump is proposing. And you know, they have transaction analysts of the highest order.
Thank you.
They watch everything we're doing.
Right, thank you.
And so we need to counteract in the same manner.
All right, thank you. Maybe we just can get closing remarks from Irungu Houghton, 30 seconds, then we'll play a clip of John, of course, U.S. Senator, making a very tearful tribute to his close friend, John McCain. And we'll be remiss, of course, if we don't also acknowledge, the death of John McCain. So let's hear from...
Debarl, do you want us to go into the John McCain conversation, or do you want us to...
Your closing remarks, and of course you can pay a tribute as well.
I think for me, you know, weighing the measure of a person when they have passed is always difficult. But I think what I am left with was John McCain was not a great man. He was a good man. He was a decent man. He was courageous. And I say this because, you know, I think everybody has talked about the courage that he displayed in Vietnam, but also Vietnam was not a noble war. It was one of the, I think, the only American wars, actually, no, not one of the only ones, one of the wars that have been in history been, I guess, likened to a misadventure. But I think the fact that he showed courage under tremendous pressure and torture, it really gives a sense of the man. But the other thing I think it's important to notice is that he was also somebody who voted regularly against a whole range of things, including support for safe abortion.
Right, thank you. John, I almost called you John McCain. Sorry. Dr. Hassan Kanenje.
Yeah. I led a team in Fort Lauderdale that campaigned very viciously against John McCain way back in 2008. Now, well, of course, as an Obama person at the time, the greatness of John McCain lies not in his battlefield in Vietnam, but it lies more in the life he lived after Vietnam. He was known as a maverick for a good reason. A lot of times he was one of the most consistent person who actually dared walk across the line. He single-handedly came back from the bed in the hospital to come and save Obamacare recently, just a few months ago. He did things that many American politicians haven't done.
Thank you. Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Debarl, no nation state goes into discussions with others without putting or caring about their own interest. Kenya needs to be very careful about the bilateral discussions, talks that are ongoing. Uhuru did very well, exceptionally well. I'm hoping that his team were carrying iPads which were not allowed to go in for security reasons, but they actually took the notes of that meeting. But it's very important to note here, Debarl, that Theresa May is coming and we must demand for the best. We need to go beyond just the trade talks. We need to go into the history. And when we are dealing with China again, we need to mind about the expensive loans that we get from
them. 30 seconds.
The world needs more of John McCain's people play beyond parts and politics. And I think the way even White House has mourned him is a shame. And we should really go beyond personal vendetta to recognize national interest, like McCain did.
Right, thank you. Professor Nomi Dambo.
I met John McCain 3 times, and what took me and in my memory is when he stood against the people who were supporting him and said, Obama is a decent man, he's an American.
Thank you. Right, thank you. Thank you, panelists. Of course, we just want to leave you with this particular clip here by... This is Senator, his close friend, Lindsey Graham, just paying tribute to Senator McCain. Let's take a close listen to it.